With ABC News covering the story. Good morning, Mark Remillard.
Good morning.
All right, so what did the Congressional Committee say?
So essentially this follows an investigation that they set forth in December, and back in 2014 the NFL had agreed to give a little over $16 million to the National Institute of Health to look into a study on brain injury in football. And what ended up happening was that the NFL should have given that money to them unconditionally. That money then would go and they would seek out a researcher. And what happened was when the NFL found out that the researcher that they picked for that grant, they weren't very happy with. He's been a critic of the league and a critic and a frontline researcher into brain injury. The NFL then not only tried to pull the money from that they were supposed to give to this study, they had originally also tried to get their own doctor to run the study, Dr. Richard Ellenbogen, who's the co-chair of the NFL Committee on Brain Injuries. They tried to get him to do the study instead.
So this congressional report calls out the NFL for trying to take the money and trying to steer the research to their own doctor. Did the NFL end up taking the money back?
Well, so they decided they tried to funnel that $16 million into other projects with its own doctors and these kinds of things. And essentially, right before this investigation was launched in December, they kind of gave a last-minute, hey, we'll pay you $2 million. So they really pulled back a lot of the money, but the National Institute of Health actually rejected that. So then the study's actually being covered by taxpayer money now, so that money isn't coming from the NFL.
What has the NFL said about any of this?
The NFL denies it. They said that they didn't withhold the funding because of Stern, that that's not why they decided to back out of the agreement, although that the report shows that there are emails and phone calls that seem to allude that Stern, the Dr. Robert Stern, who was the researcher that they did not like, they essentially said that they didn't pull out of it because of him. And then they also denied that they reject the allegations entirely. And so the report then lays out some recommendations. They want to see kind of the National Institutes of Health and the NFL come together and kind of refresh their agreement and make sure that they all understand, okay, you're on this side of the aisle with the funding, the researchers are over here, and if you're going to give them that funding, you can't be a part of it.
In this report, it says, in this instance, our investigation, this is from the Congressional Committee, has shown that while the NFL has been publicly proclaiming its role as funder and accelerator of this important research, it was privately attempting to influence that research. That is scathing. I am shocked, Mark Remillard. This isn't getting more attention.
Yeah, I think. I think this is now starting to pick up, certainly, and with how critical of an issue this has been for the NFL over the last few years, I think it really kind of changes the PR lens on them because, and the NFL will have to do some damage control after this because they've tried to start funding some of these researchers, and a doctor in here even said, hey, this was them trying to look like the good guys, that they're funding this independent research into brain trauma and its relation to football. But then essentially when they weren't happy with who decided to do the research, they were trying to pull back the money. And so it certainly doesn't look very good for the NFL, who has been already battling these issues and questions of the connection between brain injury and football. And so certainly that's not good for their business, and that may be why they tried to get involved in this.
This was a 91-page congressional inquiry on the study. What about the study itself? Where is the NIH on this study?
Well, the study's going forward. Stern, that doctor that the NFL did not like, he's still got the study. That's going to continue going forward. That officially launches next week, actually. So that will continue. And that's going to be a massive study. It's got more than 50 researchers, 17 institutions, hundreds of former college and NFL players. So this is a massive study, and this is why they needed that $16 million. I think the whole study was about $17 million. And so the NFL was essentially the largest funder of that, nearly funding the whole thing, and then them backing out of it. The NIH is still going forward with it, but as I said, at the cost of taxpayers instead.
Mark Remillard, interesting story. Thanks for checking in with ABC News.
Thank you.
7:43 here, Big 5.